The portrait arrived on a Wednesday, which Iris Fairchild would later decide was the first wrong thing. Not Wednesday itself, she had nothing against the day, but the fact that she hadn't ordered it, hadn't bid on it, hadn't signed anything. The shipping label bore her address in handwriting that curved like old smoke, and the return address was a street in Bruges that, when she searched it later, hadn't existed since 1943. She almost sent it back. She would spend a long time thinking about that. The painting depicted a woman in a high-collared dress, the color of a bruise, standing in a room that was almost familiar. The kind of room you dream about and can't quite place when you wake. The woman's face was serene, ageless. Iris propped the portrait above the fireplace because the frame was genuinely beautiful. Dark wood, carved with small repeating shapes she couldn't identify at first glance. It wasn't until her friend Remy Ashford came over that Friday and tilted his head at the carving that either of them said the word out loud. "Those are faces," Remy said. "Tiny faces. All different." Iris looked. He was right. Dozens of them pressed into the wood grain like fossils, each one distinct, each one wearing the same serene expression as the woman in the painting. She laughed it off. Old craftsmanship, eccentric, nothing more. The dreams started that same night. In the dream, she stood in the almost familiar room, and the woman in the bruise-colored dress stood across from her, and neither of them spoke because there was a mutual understanding between them, the way there is in dreams, that speaking would ruin something. The woman looked younger than she had in the painting. Iris noticed this without alarm, the way you accept impossible things when you're asleep. She woke with her hands aching. Joint pain, she assumed. She was 34. It happened. Remy noticed the painting had changed before she did. He came back 3 weeks later and stood in the doorway of the sitting room for a long moment before saying very carefully, "The woman in that portrait. How old would you say she looks?" Iris studied the painting. 25? 26. "When I was here before," Remy said, "she looked at least 40. Iris laughed again, but the sound came out wrong. She looked at her hands, the knuckles more prominent now, the skin slightly thinner than she remembered. She was 34. She had been 34 for 6 weeks. She was certain of it. She went to the mirror in the hallway. The woman looking back at her was not 40. But she was closer to 40 than she had been in a long time, in ways that went beyond normal accumulation. There were lines around her eyes that she didn't recognize from last month, a looseness at the jaw that belonged to a different decade. She went back to the painting. The woman in the portrait, young now, luminous, barely out of girlhood, gazed out from the canvas with an expression Iris finally identified. Relief. Remy helped her carry the portrait to the garage that evening. He was careful not to touch it directly, using the sleeves of his jacket as makeshift gloves, and he didn't ask why. He just helped. That was the thing about Remy. He understood when something had moved from eccentric to wrong. She slept better that night. Her hands ached less by morning, but in the garage, alone in the dark, the portrait continued its patient work, not on Iris anymore, on itself.